Hello and welcome to the Gooner Talk, back again with you guys for another episode of our Let's Talk Arsenal series, show in which I'm joined by a guest to discuss all the latest Arsenal fiascos and scenarios going on right now. I'm very happy to be joined by James from AFTV. How you doing, mate? You good? You well?
Yeah, very good, Tom. Thanks very much. Thanks for having me. It's good actually. After yesterday's win, I'm not quite done talking about it. Some results have that. Some results. It wasn't even really the performance, but some results just have you kind of purring for the next couple of days. So I'm sure we'll enjoy getting into this one.
Yeah, I don't know if you're like me. Whenever Arsenal win, I tweeted this the other day. I think it was yesterday. It must have been yesterday. I just kind of break out into fits of giggles randomly and spontaneously. Like I'll see something pop up on Twitter and I'll just start just giggling and smiling because Arsenal have won. It's just a great feeling. It just makes the day better, doesn't it?
Absolutely. When it is followed by Spurs dropped points and a terrible performance that they put in, it helps. So yeah, I know what you mean. I mean, to be honest, the whole weekend's been great with the boxing, the F1. I don't know if you're into all that. So
I am. Yeah. I watch both. Yeah,
catching the Chelsea and then the North London, the Merseyside derby. So I've got to say, it's been a very good sporting weekend on a sunny London.
Saying that, I'm not Verstappen's biggest fan, so. Yeah, I'm more of a Charles Leclerc person.
Yeah, well, so I when I had COVID at Christmas, I binge watched Drive to Survive.
Yeah,
I've really enjoyed it, and in trying to get my family and my girlfriend into it, I've rewatched it a second time. Being half Italian, I adopted Ferrari as my team, and it sounds like I picked up a good year for it, except for today. Today didn't go great, but
well,
good,
especially Italian Grand Prix, I suppose. But yeah, no, I did the same thing. I mean, I watched it when I was really young, like in my early teens, and then kind of fell out of love with it a bit. Like I think because Hamilton was winning every single year, I just got a bit bored of it. And then the Drive to Survive thing came along again, and that got me, back into it. So yeah, even the missus is proper hooked. She's actually away on I was going to say a honeymoon. I was that'd be a bit weird if she was away on a honeymoon.
Enjoy your honeymoon.
And no, her mum's really into it. So I just went up to her parents today. She's not around, but I want to go up and watch the F1 with your mum. So.
Listen, that's great. What a way to spend a Sunday.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you everyone that's joining us in the chat box. Thank you for joining us live. Hope you're having a fantastic weekend. We know that Arsenal done the business for you, so hopefully everything else has gone your way. Do drop a like on the video and subscribe to the channel if you're new. We do daily updates. We do fantastic shows with great guests like James every single week, and lots more too with the transfer window fast approaching as well. There's going to be lots of transfer fun to get into. But before we get to that, Arsenal have the small matter of trying to get into the top four. And after this week's results, it's amazing how quickly things change, James, because we came off the back of three awful losses to obviously Crystal Palace and Southampton and Brighton. And then Arsenal go and do a very Arsenal thing and beat Chelsea and Manchester United. So after the last 5 games, where is your head at, if you can even describe it?
Oh, well, look, we're still, we're 2 points clear. We're sitting 4th. It could have been more. It could have been better. I'm sure Tottenham will be saying the same. I'm sure Tottenham will be saying if we'd beaten Brighton, if we'd beaten Brentford, which they should have, they'll look back at that week where they lost to Southampton, having taken the lead, and lost to Wolves at home as well. So I think every side in this race, can look back at moments where they let it slip or nearly let it slip. But that's been the top 4 race for the last 3-4 years. If there's one thing it's showing is that Arsene Wenger, who finished outside the top 4 for the first time, with 75 points, losing out to Klopp, Guardiola, Conte. Who else was in front of him? I can't remember. Pochettino.
Yes, of course.
Kind of, with every year, reminds you that even in the decline, we're still doing a very good job at times. I mean, in terms of results, let's say, there were other off-the-field issues. But that's the nature of the top 4 race. And here we are. We're leading it. So I can only be happy with, 5 games to go? And I've taken that at the beginning of the season. So I've got to say I'm feeling good.
Yeah, it's... I wasn't, to be fair, last weekend. And that kind of shows you how quickly in just 7 days, and it's a completely different mood. I mean, especially, and I'm interested to ask you about this because we both work around Arsenal every single day. Then that is our job, and yes, it's a dream job, and we don't take it for granted. But when it's bad, does it affect? It really affects me. Like I wake up the next day knowing I'm going to be working and talking and writing about Arsenal, and it genuinely is a. The losses are more painful now than they were because I'm so locked in to Arsenal. If you know what I mean.
Yeah, that's a great question. I felt the opposite a little bit because,
Really? So you
yeah,
can
do you know
detach
why?
yourself a lot more.
What happened with me was I used to watch Arsenal with my mum and dad and brother or family or friends, and whenever if we lose or drop points, have
Mm,
a bad result, I just had to wallow and stew in it for days and the aftermath and whatever. And it's why I'm so grateful for like an AFTV, the Gooner talk, not just for the platform that I have on it, but for its existence.
mm.
When I was living in Bologna my year abroad, I
Just throw
used to
that
watch
in. Just I used to live in Bologna. Just
when
drop
I
that little cherry there.
when I yeah. That was fun. I told you I was half Italian.
Yeah, true.
I saw someone in the comments asking if I was a fake Italian. But when I was living there, these fan channels got me through it. Working on
Mm,
one now, I find it therapeutic. I find once I've done the fan cam, once I've spoken it out and around others who are feeling the same way, I go home and I feel like I've left it at work. And being an Arsenal fan isn't work. My life. I love it.
mm,
But I've definitely been able to find that detachment, which I know football means everything to everyone, and Arsenal means an awful lot to many people. For some people, it's everything. But I'll always encourage people to be able to find that detachment. But I
mm.
know what you mean. It's very, very difficult because you go out with your mates after, or you're at home, kind of having dinner, watching a movie, or whatever, and you are thinking it through.
Yeah.
But that's the nature of that. The highs are high, though. The highs are high.
The highs are very high. Yeah, a few of the listeners clipped my reaction to the Chelsea win, the reaction show. I did fly off the handle is the wrong word because that sounds more negative, but just lost it a little bit. Certainly
When we
lost
won or lost, sorry, the Chelsea
when we
game.
won against Chelsea. Yeah, on Wednesday. Yeah, it was. You should go back and just watch the first minute because it's. That's been clipped now, and I'm being, every time we do something good, someone tweets me the clip because I just lost it. I
Oh,
was
that's
so
brilliant.
happy.
No, I'm gonna go back and find that because
Yeah.
I'll enjoy that. That'll be good.
It was. It's just Arsenal just makes you do funny things,
Yeah.
and we appreciate it when it goes well. But equally, when it isn't going so well, it goes the other way very quickly. Let's focus on the game, the games, and talk about the two fixtures against Chelsea and Man United. It's a hard question to start with. But why did we lose to Palace, Southampton, and Brighton, and why did we then beat Chelsea and Manchester United? It's an easy one to start. There, off you go.
Welcome to Arsenal Football Club. If there's anyone, I doubt there is. If there's anyone in the comments who's actually here because they just want to get into football, I'd say, well, brace yourselves. I think if you want to be really kind of simple about it, I think you can say we won these two because we started El Neni, we put Xhaka near him, and we had a better base to build off. But does that really explain quite how drastic the turnaround in form and results and performances can be?
Mhm.
I thought the three defeats were all very different. I thought Palace was a classic example of the players having not kicked a ball for 15, 16 days. Partey's touch was awful. Odegaard was all over the place. The key players who ran what Arsenal do couldn't get into the game. Lacazette had a shocker. We conceded early goals. And then actually we had chances to get back into it. In fact, on another day, we probably might draw that game 2-2. But we didn't. We lost it 3-0. Then you go to Brighton. He puts Xhaka a left back. He's trying to do something different. He's looking at where everyone's going to be on the pitch, and he's trying to fit his best players into the team. Didn't work. Brighton had a plan for it. Beat us. But we were shocking on the day. I thought it was worse than the Palace performance, actually. And then Southampton, I can say it's now because we've won the last two. I sort of alluded to it in my fan cam, but I thought we played quite well at Southampton.
Yeah,
Listen,
we've won games playing like that, haven't we?
we were lacking exactly. That's it. We've played like that at other grounds against better teams and won. And I think we were lacking a little bit of cutting edge. We were lacking a little bit of luck. It was just one of those days. And had that result and performance come on the back of now these two wins, you'd probably be saying just a bad day at the office, unlucky.
Yeah.
But it was the fact that Spurs had lost to Brighton, it hammered home the point, and we had Chelsea looming. So I actually think there had been a little bit of a shift in that game in terms of our performance. But El Neni coming in has made a massive difference. I feel like the youngsters can thrive when there's an experienced platform for them to build off. Now, White and Gabriel, listen, they're not the most experienced, but they're not 19, 20-year-olds. I think 24, 23 maybe. Then you've got El Neni and Xhaka there. And that's a very decent base for the youngsters to then go and thrive. And I think they showed that against Chelsea and against United, and they showed a great togetherness. I mean, don't look past the team spirit as well. That has been a constant theme throughout the season, win, lose, or draw. So I think we can be very proud with that. But I mean, let me ask you. I mean, why? Why 2 wins on the bounce after that run?
I think Mohamed El Neni has a lot to do with it, actually. I want to turn around and say, credit to Arteta for picking it, but there's an argument that maybe we should have recognised that it wasn't necessarily working with Lokonga and brought El Neni in sooner. So I suppose that you could argue that point, but you've still got to pick him, you've still got to bring him in, and we did against Chelsea. It's a real tough one, though, and that's why I threw it to you first, because working out why we can be so poor and then turn things around. But I think there's also an element of, teams go through these periods. Every team, be it Liverpool, Man City, they'll have a couple of games or 2-3 games where they drop. And for Arsenal that are just not on that level yet, it's much more likely that we're going to have moments where we do fall away. The fortune is that despite the fact that we lost those 3 fixtures, which if anything kind of goes to show how good we've been prior to that point, is that we still had the top 4 in our hands, even though we were able to lose 3 games in a row. And now, obviously, with the Brentford game, we've got that 2-point buffer, and now Liverpool play Spurs and we play West Ham, a West Ham team that are obviously going to be playing. I think Spurs play Leicester first, don't they? They play Leicester after their Europa Conference game, so you'd expect them to win that, and I think that we'll probably be able to beat West Ham, considering the fact they'll be playing Frankfurt on the Thursday, and this whole chaos with their centre backs now that they don't have. I mean, Red Gilly in the chat box saying Dawson red card, misses the game.
He's been very good for them as well.
Very, very good. He's a very frustrating defender to play against because he's old school, but he's got that ability to just deal with modern players in a no-nonsense fashion. Very underrated indeed. One of their best signings probably in the last few years or so. Yeah. So I think that we'll have the best of those 2. And then obviously they play Liverpool when we play Leeds at home, which, you know, you look at that game and you expect Arsenal to win, especially considering how much we battered them earlier in the season. But they had their own issues then. Jesse Marsch, I don't think he's arrested the slide just yet. He's got a couple of results, but there's a lot of issues still at Leeds. And I think they're still in danger, actually. And I think Burnley's form puts them in danger. And if Everton can pick up a couple of wins, although they've got some really difficult fixtures as well, Leeds as well could get drawn into this relegation scrap quite easily if they're not already.
Yeah.
And then you can... And I don't want to start going, if we win this game and, they lose this game, then we could... But we could go into the North London derby and secure top 4 at their grounds. It could happen. If we win the next 2 games and Spurs win against Leicester but lose against Liverpool, then you're suddenly 5 points ahead. You beat Spurs and you're 8 points clear with 2 games left. You're there. You've done it.
And that's the thing. And sorry to cut you, but that's a point Sorry?
I was waffling, so you were good. Go.
No, because there was a bit there that I thought, you're right. It's such a footballing cliche, game by game, all that. But I think if you're Arteta, you've got to be looking at these players and saying, forget 5 games left. Win your next 2. Now, we can't do anything about Spurs. Spurs can go and beat Leicester at home and beat Liverpool away. We still be 2 points clear of them. But you've got to think there's a decent chance if we win our next 2 games that Spurs drop points in at least one of those 2. And it's so funny. We just lost 3 on the bounce, and here I am saying win your next 2 and it's secured. It's not what I'm saying, but I think that's got to be the motivation. West Ham's not going to be an easy place to go, even with their Europa League ties either side. Leeds again will be fighting for their lives, and they can just be dangerous. They can just do whatever. But that's got to be the motivation. Pick up 6 more points. Let's see where we are. Go to the North London derby. But I think it put immense pressure on Spurs. That if we win at West Ham, I think it puts immense pressure on Spurs, and that's got to be the motivation. Just keep hammering it into them, keep putting the ball in their court, and saying, "What have you got?" And that's what we did this week. That's what I loved about it, right? Because they lost to Brighton, And yeah, okay, we lost to Southampton. So they're probably thinking, "Ooh, we got away with it."
Mm.
But I think any Spurs fan who watched that game would have thought, "Oh, Arsenal looked okay though." And then they beat Chelsea. I think, well, that's the game in hand. We're level. And then they beat United, not being at their best. So that's what we've got to do. Keep setting it. I think so much of it is psychological at this stage of the season. I really do. And that might be the only way you can explain losing 3 games you shouldn't and winning 2 games you arguably shouldn't either. Because the mentality, that all comes into it now.
Mm. Yeah, the mentality is the key thing for Arsenal, and I think that's. It was interesting listening to Edu's interview recently, and we'll come on to that more in detail and transfers in a bit. But how he spoke about the balance and addressing the balance of the team, and also bringing in kind of young, hungry players, which we got in White and Ramsdale, and Ødegaard's coming in too. And of course, Tavares and Lokonga have very much been for the future, but they've been called upon. And whilst they're not the end product by any means, and there's a lot of issues and areas of development in their game still that they need to improve on, which is natural for 22-year-olds. You don't expect them to be the finished article unless they're a world-class player, the levels of your Haalands and your Mbappes that are in the similar age bracket. You don't expect that, but what we've got a hungry team. And you look at the way the team celebrates. Like, you look at the way in which you've got a player like Lacazette, whose future is uncertain. When Nketiah scored, and when Saka scored at Chelsea, yeah, he was going mental. And when Xhaka scored, again, going mental, despite not being on the pitch. And it's this mentality change that I think has got so much respect for what Arteta's done at the club. I've got my criticisms of him, as I'm sure pretty much everyone does, because, he's made mistakes. You look at the Brighton game, the selection was awful. He's made mistakes and cost us in certain scenarios. But the change in the mentality of this team and the togetherness and the unity and the connection with the fans as well is huge right now.
Sam Matterface on Talk Sport. Literally an hour ago with dinner, I was listening to some of his takeaways, and he said there was an injury or something had gone on, and all the Arsenal players went to Arteta, huddled around him, instruction, and the United players were sort of out in the field. I don't know what Ranić was doing. And I think that is just a little small example of where Arsenal have had the edge on the other two in this top 4 race so far. And I say edge because we're 1 game away from it swinging the complete other way again. I'm sure Tottenham fans are thinking, oh, we got Leicester at home, 1 great, and then they got West Ham away. So let's leapfrog them before Liverpool, right? That will be the mentality of both sets of fans. But it is a little bit of not a cliche, but it is a little bit of a, how do you quantify good energy, which Arteta likes to use that word energy? How do you quantify feel-good factor and togetherness and all that? But that is something I really believe Arsenal have had over the other two. Now, I've always thought when you've got that little bit extra, that gets you over the line with titles and cup finals or whatever.
Yeah.
Top 4 race, I've always felt actually isn't really as deep as that. It's kind of who can score their way to it, which is why I've worried about the lack of goals in this team. But Spurs' goals have dried up, and it's done us a bit of a favour. So we might just have enough there. I've got to say, this is the best season of football I can remember in a long time.
Yeah,
from
100%.
City and Liverpool battling it out. The top 4 race has been brilliant. And people don't forget that West Ham have more than played their part in that race as well when they beat Chelsea, beat Liverpool, although it's probably over for them after today. Spurs, what a story, even though I hate them. From Nuno to Conte, who'd have thought that? You've then got Man United, who are kind of title contenders, then lost it. Everton in a relegation battle. Burnley sacking Sean Dyche. I mean, it's been unbelievable. And
what did you make of that decision?
Sorry?
I thought it was mad at the time to sack Sean Dyche, but it looks like it's paying off at the moment.
Well, look, I ultimately, they might get a manager bounce and that will keep them up. I still think he'd have kept them up. And I actually think long term, you want Sean Dyche as your manager. I don't know who's better that they'll go get. But look, maybe I'm wrong. And I'd love to be wrong because I've heard lots of people say, you got rid of Emery for Arteta, who's a novice. What were you thinking? And, it's looking okay at the moment. Although we'll see how it ends. So
too much.
It's been a really great season of football. If you're a neutral, you just love football for the game. You must be absolutely loving what's going on. I think the championship's pretty exciting as well, from what I can see. So, yeah.
Even from an Arsenal perspective, though, just from a blinkered point of view, it's been one of the best seasons, that we've had that we can get behind. The last one, obviously, you think of is Emery's first season, where we finished 1 point off, and obviously we lost the Europa League final. But that season finished in a very different manner. You know, when you look at the games that we dropped points in leading to that end of season, it was an awful end, and that's the difference. And I think that could be the difference that we look at between Emery and Arteta this season. Is will the team buckle like it did under Emery at the end of that season, or will it push on this season and the togetherness and that, because the squad fell away from Emery so quickly after that, failure in the Europa League final and the top 4 failure as well. If you can see a difference between the squads, it is how connected this group of players is to their manager, and you think that would be the telling difference between the two.
Yeah, and everyone's entitled to their opinion. Some people have drawn a line and said, if Arteta gets 4th, you give him another year, you give him more money, whatever. If he doesn't, you move on. I've seen enough in terms of not just on the pitch, because on the pitch it's been a little up and down. Actually, I'm being way too kind. It's been very up and down. But I've seen enough that I would give him another summer, kind of regardless. If he loses his next 5, then you're thinking, okay, that's pretty bad. But let's say he misses out by a point or 2. That will be heartbreaking because of who we're losing it to, and we missed the Champions League so much. But I really think I've seen enough, and I'm ready to see another year of Arteta's Arsenal, with hopefully more of his players, and we'll get into the transfer stuff later, as he said. But comparing it to the end of season with Emery had some bad results in there, and the side never really looked like it could bounce back from it. I don't know what it was. I think a part of it was Emery kind of compromised on his principles a little bit. He kind of went from a 4-2-2-2 to a 3-5-2 to a 4-3-3, did a bit of everything. And you didn't, what was hard for Arsenal fans was understanding what they were getting behind. And Arsenal, it's easy to say you should love your club regardless, and no matter what, you support them through thick and thin. That's true, but the difference between I'm turning up to support and hope for the best, and I am going to get this team over the line as well, is understanding what it is you're supporting and buying into. And that's the one thing Arteta's really got right this year. Even when he went to a 3 at the back against Chelsea, he didn't fully compromise on his principles. The football was still very similar. The playing out the back was still brave. The pressing was still good. He just added that little bit of layer of protection. Against United, brings back Cedric because he wants to chase the game, and he's decided he doesn't want White at right back. He wants to, give it a real go against United. And we weren't brilliant. In fact, it was a pretty chaotic, messy performance. But
I think it was our worst defensive performance of the season, besides the Man City 5-0.
I think that's absolutely fair. And you're right, we did. We lost 5-0 at City. Bloody hell. Liverpool was better. The Anfield Liverpool performance was better. They just had quality that ripped through us, right? So this is where I think Arsenal and Arsenal fans, there's an understanding. There is. I get what you're trying to do, and you get what we're about. And it's been, I thought the Emirates was just a pleasure yesterday. It was what football's all about, from the build up to the game, the singing on the train and out Finsbury Park Tube or wherever you came out from. And, then you got kids with balls in the street, as the players drive off after the game. I went to the fan cams after. Everyone's in great spirits, out in the sun, the celebrations. Did you see the picture of Robbie in the crowd?
Yes, I did. Yeah.
Right. I mean, just and everyone in that picture, just pure delirium, if that's even a word.
Yeah. Harry Symeou put up a brilliant picture of him, the professional talking to Premier League, and then the fanboy. That's a great photo.
I saw that. That was class, and that was what yesterday was all about. But then I'm going to ask you: is that enough for top 4? Is that enough to get us over?
Man, the biggest meme of the season has been the guy holding up the metal pole with Arsenal labelled as the person doing the hitting, the pole being Arsenal, and the person he's hitting being Arsenal. Because we are the reason that we won't get top 4. It won't because of how bad Spurs or United have been, and sure, they've not been as good as we expect them to be, but we've elevated ourselves to be in this race. You still have to be good enough to be in the race yourselves, but if we miss out, it will be because of us. it will be because we have not been good enough. Or, there's some things we can talk about injuries, we can talk about Partey and Tierney and Tomiyasu, but thank God Tomiyasu's back, because I think, talking of timing, that's the best time we could have had to bring Tomiyasu back now, because Cedric looked out of it. I thought that was probably the worst performance of Cedric I've seen in an Arsenal shirt. So
well,
he's
also,
be huge.
We learned a lot about Tavares, and some people might say we knew this, but Tavares, who I thought had actually pretty good first half, had a disaster in the second. Yeah. I struggled to think of a worse performance across 45 minutes. Yet this might just be because we won. I still love him. He's got this. I don't know how to explain it. He's got this kind of that's me. Kind of, I'm nuts, and that's kind of what you sign up for. And
I do like that. Yeah.
And he'll get you the goal, and he might drop a shoulder cut inside.
And then smash it wildly
wide. Messi did that. It was a lovely bit of skill. Then he drilled it into, you're going, I don't know where to credit you, because you made it happen, but then you ruined it. And then he gives away a penalty. Probably should have given away a second one.
He's promising, isn't he? It's promising, you see from him. Like the cut inside, and then the wild smash. And I remember the interview he did when he joined. He says, I can shoot with my right foot. And then in the first pre-season game, he scored with his right foot against Rangers. And I'm like, wow, we've got a hell of a kid here, coming in. And then it's just the composure. It's just that last. It's the difference between great players and world-class players is people talk about touch. It's the touch of a player. It's how they take the ball and it's how they get that final shot off. Yeah. And I don't think he's a top-class player or anywhere near world-class talent. Maybe he would be one day. I mean, we've seen some chaotic players. I mean, João Cancelo was chaotic when he was a youngster, playing for Valencia. Yeah. He was chaotic. And then you see the maturity from going to Inter Milan and Juventus and now Man City, of course, as well. So look, I think there's a lot more to come from Nuno Tavares. But yeah, look, he's not the he's not the finished article.
Well, someone pointed out, I saw the picture of his celebration, and I'm going to ruin it if I try and do it. But he basically did something like this, and I thought, okay, well, what's he doing? He said this is basically that's the cannon, that's the Arsenal cannon.
Oh,
and
wow!
I absolutely love it. You're a fan favorite.
Yeah,
give him the armband.
He's been sitting at home just like, oh, hold on a sec, guys. I could do a cannon with my finger.
I've got no idea. Something like that.
That makes sense. Anyway. Yeah, cannon.
And
I get it.
Go find it. Yeah, whoever watching this, go find the picture of his celebration. Well, actually, go find his tweet. And he tweeted, cannon loaded. And someone says, is that a cannon? I thought, I love it. And you're going to, all Arsenal fans will be going around just doing that or whatever now. So, I mean, but that is part of the reason why we love these young players. It's their personality. It's the way they conduct themselves. It's, you're looking at Smith Rowe and Saka, the photo shoot after with Henry and Bergkamp. So wholesome, we love it. And that's another part of why we're buying into these players. So look, there's a lot to be positive about. There is. Are we capable of losing the next three? Yes, we have proven we can do that. But I think you've got to sometimes look at the bigger picture. And I think, to be fair, most Arsenal fans after those three defeats, I think did look at the bigger picture and say it's a shame. Rather than I'm annoyed, typical, they've done it again, bottlers. I think it was more, it's a shame because of how well we've done, but we've turned it back around.
We absolutely have. We've been ignorant of the chat box. I want to jump in and get some comments flowing as well. If you have been throwing in questions, we're going to be going for about an hour and a half, so we're going to put the questions to the end. So there'll be plenty of time for us to go for a Q&A session towards the end of the show. Paul says, Tavares is the love child of Abue and Andre Santos. Still love him, though, and he's scored, so can forgive his frailties. Lewis says, Kolasinac vibes from him. Good attacking, horrible defender. That's harsh, Kolasinac was an experienced player when he joined Arsenal in his mid to late 20s and then continued to be quite poor. Tavares is 22.
And I think Tavares is more going forward, personally. He just looks a bit more vibrant.
Absolutely. I mean, the assist for Saka in the Newcastle game earlier in the season, that piece of... And actually, those games against Newcastle, Leicester, Aston Villa, Watford... He kept Tierney out of the team. Tierney was injured, but came back, and he was on the bench for a fair few games up until that Liverpool disaster, to be honest, when he played the pass back into Jota. But he deserved to be the starter in those games. And actually, one of the big reasons I think that he was is because Tomiyasu was on the right-hand side. And, he brings that balance to the back four. When Cedric was there, Cedric was fine when Tierney was there because Tierney provided the balance. But lose both of those two players and all of a sudden you've got a very chaotic formula of two fullbacks. And that leaves you very exposed.
I think that is absolutely it. We went to Leicester, played very well. We had to both attack brilliantly and defend and really dig in. And Tavares did really well in that game. And we were coming away from it going, wow, what a player we've got here. I think Tomiyasu is a big part of. It's weird, right? Because one plays right on the right and one plays on the left, and it's not like they ever exchange passes or cross paths in any way. But there is definitely something about, Gabriel and White being able to shuffle a little bit to cover Tavares because you've got Tomiyasu, who's essentially a centre back converted right back, and he does kind of offset the limitations, with Tavares. But and actually going to the Liverpool game, a lot of people wanted Tierney back in that team, but as a third centre back with Tavares left wing back. So people were even saying, well, we should have Tierney, but let's not drop Tavares. He's been brilliant. So I think people are very quick to forget that there was a point, first half of the season, where he did very well for us. And then after Forest, I think it attached a little bit of a reputation to him that I thought was a bit unfair. And, I say it was unfair because he did have a shocker against United that second half. But I definitely think he gives you something. This isn't a player that I look at and think, oh, look, he really weakens our team. I kind of think for his weaknesses, you do get something going the other way.
I think so. Amir in the chat box says, Tom, can we please talk about Martin Ødegaard?
I love that.
Coined the phrase. Vinny, one of our members, has coined the phrase in the chat box recently. He had the captain's armband for the last 4 fixtures since Tierney's been out and since Lacazette's not started. So, the Chelsea game certainly and the Southampton game again. So the last 3 games he's been captain. Do you think he's the right choice for next season? Because Tierney, of course, is the deputy to Lacazette at the moment. Lacazette's going to go. I think we all pretty much have made our peace with that now. Tierney, when he's fit, I think is the one that will be given it, because I just think he's there. But do you think that Ødegaard can do anything in these last few games to show Arteta that he deserves to be the captain? And do you think that would be the right choice?
I sort of see issues with each candidate. Mm-hmm. And actually, if you probably looked across the Premier League, is there a perfect candidate? I mean, maybe Van Dijk. He doesn't even wear the armband, does he? It's Henderson. Let's go through him. I mean, I'm going to start with Granit Xhaka. I'm not saying he's my number one, but I think some people feel just after the way it ended the last time he had the armband, there's kind of no way he could possibly have it back. And maybe he's thriving off not wearing the armband. That could be true. I also think there's still... Xhaka's been very good for us recently and put in immense captain-like performances in the last 2 games. But there's always this feeling that come the summer, we'll probably still need to upgrade. And I always think, would he get into live? Go on, what's that, Tom? Sorry?
I know what you mean. No, go on. So I was just saying, yeah.
Would he start for Liverpool? No. Would he start for City? No. Well, if that's the level we want to get to, if we're in the Champions League next year, well, then that kind of answers your question. Whereas I could in my head see Partey starting for those 2. I could in my head see Ødegaard getting game time for those 2. Mm-hmm. I won't dwell on it too much because I really like Xhaka and I don't want it to be an opportunity to criticise him. But otherwise, I do think, had we forgot the past, he'd be a very good candidate for it. I think Kieran Tierney is definitely a candidate. I have this horrible feeling, not this summer, but next summer, I have a feeling we might be looking to replace him, I think injuries are a thing.
Mm-hmm. He's not an Arteta signing as well.
What's that, sorry?
He's not an Arteta signing. Like, he wasn't signed.
He's not an Arteta signing. Yeah. And I wonder whether he's the complete package as a modern-day fullback. Mm-hmm. Which sounds crazy, right? Very good defensively.
It doesn't. It really doesn't. It's something that we've discussed on the channel a lot recently, is whether or not, if, say, Real Madrid came in with £50 million, would you accept it? And, I think I would if you told me that. I wouldn't just accept it off the basis that, they bidded and now we've got to find a left back. If you said to me that, we were going out and signing, as good of a replacement, but someone who remains fitter, than him. But the thing with Tierney is the leadership side of his game. You know, the communication, the inspirational side of his game. So that's what you've got to find if you lose him. It's not just the quality; it's the character that you have to find in him if you replace him.
I think ultimately there will be in certain teams there are players who won't have the same quality, but they do have those other things, and they're still just as important to the team. I love Kieran Tierney. Listen, he can drop a shoulder, beat a man, and whip it in the box, kind of old school Gareth Bale style. And he is very good defensively. So, you know, you're probably thinking, what on earth do you want from a fullback then? I kind of think in a system where you're playing kind of both midfield and fullback, but sometimes you got to hug the touchline. You got to beat your fullback both on the outside and the inside. I look at what Trent, Cancelo, Reece James do, and I just sort of think, do I think he's on their level? No. And I actually think he's quite far off it, even though I think he's still a very, very good fullback. So I don't know. But listen, I love him. So he could be it. And Odegaard, you can talk about his class all you want. He seems to be a coach on the pitch, telling everyone where to go, leading the press, leads from the front. I think he embodies what Arteta loves in a player, which is doesn't panic, keeps the ball, will play that risky pass, but when he knows it's on. And I think he just embodies the manager on the pitch. Some people might say that's not a good thing. But for me, it is. And I just love watching him play. I mean, there were moments where he thought, he's lost the ball. Oh, no, he hasn't. And then he nutmegs Varane and the little dink into Saka that wins us the penalty. He had a few moments like that. I think he's class. I think he's absolutely class. And, you know, I thought he schooled Bruno Fernandes yesterday a little bit on how to be.
He's better than him. 10. I'm going to put this out there. I know that Bruno's at United right now, and United are a bit of a mess. But, you know, it's about consistency. It's about character. It's about attitude. And, you know, if you're using that, he's a better... I wouldn't swap him. I wouldn't swap him for Bruno Fernandes. Call that a hot take, but I wouldn't swap him for Bruno Fernandes.
No, God, no. I wouldn't. No, not at all. I mean, two things. It's a style thing, right? For me, I love a number 10 / playmaker who wants to combine, link, move it, pass and move, keep the game flowing. I've always loved this kind of players. Why I love Thiago, that's why I love Fabregas, it's why great, I loved Cazorla. I love them. And it's why I never fell in love with forget the fact he was a Spurs player. It's why I never loved a Dele Alli, even in his pomp at Spurs. I couldn't quite appreciate him in the same way I appreciated Christian Eriksen. Because the high volume of goals and assists, I don't know. It's so impressive. The numbers were brilliant, and Fernandes' numbers at United last season were fantastic.
Yeah.
And who's more likely to win you the game, Odegaard or Fernandes, by putting it in the top corner from 30 yards? It's Bruno. It absolutely is. But
this season, I'll tell you, Odegaard's more likely to find that killer pass than Bruno is.
Yeah, I think that's true even outside of this season. Well, Bruno has, listen, both top players, but I think they're different. I think they're different. And for me, I much prefer Odegaard and his style. Listen, could we be in a year or two's time here where Bruno Fernandes has had a year of Erik ten Hag, and he's kind of cultured him a little bit and taught him how to look after the ball a bit better, give him better options, give him better runners. And we're sitting here saying, oh, Bruno, what a fabulous player. Absolutely. But I kind of think the same with Odegaard. Give him even more quality in front of him, better cohesion, and we'll see him doing even more. So, yeah, both great players, but I wouldn't trade Odegaard.
No. I want to go on to transfers. Before I do, though, there's one other topic, which is Antonio Conte, that I wanted to quickly discuss about. I know you love your stats, James. And one of my favourite stats that I've been using in the last 24 hours has been that when Antonio Conte took over at Spurs, they were 2 points behind us and played the same amount of games. And 5 months later, Spurs are 2 points behind us with the same amount of games played. What does that mean about Conte? And what does that mean about Arteta? And what does that mean about Arsenal and Spurs?
What does it mean?
Because the whole, he strengthened in January, we didn't strengthen in January, and they've got two world-class players, in my opinion, in Kane and Son, and they're still 2 points behind us.
I find Spurs such a weird side. I really do. I really do. What does it say? I really will answer that properly at the end of the season. Not just to kind of save my arse a little bit on stream, but because we're one game away from that stat completely non-existing. But then we're 2 games away from it being, true again. It's what does it tell us? What does it tell us? I think it tells us that Conte hasn't had the big immediate impact we thought he would. I know a lot of Spurs fans feel that they've really not got a good side there in terms of players. I don't think you have to have a great side to get into the top four. And they've got the one thing Arsenal and United don't really. Well, I know United have Ronaldo, but Son and Kane in form, who can, Villa battered them and Spurs won 4-0. That's Kane and Son.
Yeah.
That is Kane and Son.
I wouldn't say we have a great team. Like, if you're defining great team in the terms of top four quality, and by top four quality, you're in a top four with Chelsea, City, and Liverpool. I wouldn't say that we have what I thought was a top four team at the start of the season, and we've not added to it. In fact, we've made it worse because we've got rid of players in January. So, but Kane and Son are top four quality. I'd take them an instant.
They are. Listen, they are. They should be playing Champions League football. They're at that level. Kulusevski's been fantastic. I like Bentancur. I think Højbjerg does a job in there. I think Romero, Dyer, Davis is a very sensible back three, and they've got a good goalkeeper. I think there's more than enough there for them to get into the top four, which is why two things. A, I won't write them off now, but B, when they went to Old Trafford, I wanted United to win that game. Everyone else wanted a draw. I wanted United to win because I knew it was Spurs I'd be looking at and thinking, I don't want them to get those extra points, blah, blah, blah.
Yep.
Conte has had moments where you think it's clicked and he's found the cheat code. Get it into Kane and Son will fire and get the wing backs into the box. And there are times where I've been really impressed by them. But Spurs have this ability to lose games that they absolutely deserve to lose. Like I know they win games that they didn't deserve to win.
Leicester, Villa,
yeah. Leicester, they played well, but two goals in the final minute is unbelievable.
Yeah.
Villa, the chances Villa missed, they win 4-0. Watford should have a penalty. Spurs win. We've had a few, but they've had quite a lot.
Man City, you would say, deserved to beat them, but they were just great on the counter
across both games. So, but Spurs also have this ability. The way we lost to Brighton and Southampton, but we had like 20 plus shots in each, and we probably had more of the territory. And we have a goal disallowed here, and that's cleared off the line. And Forster has a worldie, and you're tearing your hair up because you're not clinical. But really, deep down, Arsenal were the better team in that game. Spurs have dropped 5 points to Brighton and Brentford and absolutely didn't deserve anything out of either of them. Brighton were the better team on their patch. Brentford were the better team, should have won the game. And I don't know how many times Arsenal have had that kind of game. They've lost again, they shouldn't have lost. But I've watched it and I've gone, well, of course we lost. We were terrible. Probably Palace twice were the two games where I thought, they've just battered us. They've been brilliant. But yeah, that's where I think Spurs are very funny. They can have these performances where you just think they really don't look good. But I will not write them off. Oh my word, I won't do it.
No, not at all. Not while they've got Kane and Son. That I believe those two are bigger than Conte as a factor to get into top four. Because
I think so.
I mean, as I said, with the whole point system, Nuno was 2 points behind us before he got sacked, and they've remained 2 points behind us without that change in manager. And I think that Kane always tends to start the season slow anyway, so this upturn in form is always naturally going to happen. You can't rule them out, but what you do think about Spurs and what we do say about Spurs is that when it comes the moments that really matter, that's when they're at their weakest. And I'm hoping that's going to happen again. Lynn in the chat box says, Conte is an elite manager, but the difference between Mikel he's got what he knows that it means to wear the shirts. And that is what Mikel has instilled into the squad. And that is the mentality that has unified them as a team. Do absolutely have to agree with that. A lot of people are asking about this PSG news that you probably have seen drop this evening.
It's so funny.
Do you think that's going to affect? Do you think that affects them going into these last 5 games?
The reason I don't is because I think Spurs. Actually, I was speaking to a Spurs fan the other day who said this. I think as a club, players included, fans, I think they know they're quite lucky to have Conte. This is a guy who goes to clubs to win titles.
Of course they are. It's Spurs and it's Antonio Conte. Yeah, of course.
I'm trying to be pretty polite, but you are. Yeah,
you don't need to be.
No, fair enough. We are on the Gooner talk. No, you're right. They know they're lucky to have him. So I think there's an element of let him say what he wants, let him do what he wants. As long as he's delivering results, we don't care. I don't know if that would fly at many other clubs. I think he's got that position of power. How many times has he called out the people upstairs and threatened to leave and whatever? Doesn't surprise me for one. It would not surprise me for 1 second if PSG, if he said to PSG, "Listen, I'll take that job." But, I think despite all that, I do believe he remains committed to the cause. And what I mean by that is, I don't think he does his job half-heartedly. Away from it all, I'm sure he's sounding out better opportunities or whatever. But I think on the job, he's doing absolutely everything he can. He gives 100%. I think he hates losing. I think he would see getting Tottenham into the top 4 ahead of Arsenal being at their best for a few years and United being who United are with the players they've got. I think he'd see getting them into the top 4 as a massive achievement and a big tick on his CV. So he'll give it his all, but would he? I wouldn't be surprised if he left at the end of the season. Actually, that's a lie. I say that because of the Conte and thing and everything that surrounds him. I would be quite surprised. I think he'd want at least the summer to see if he can kick them on another level. But I think a lot of it is down to what he can be bothered to do.
Jump for
it. Conte has shown that when he can't be bothered, he can't be bothered. He has kind of shown that. I don't mean on the job. I mean start of the season. Oh, Inter Milan got to sell a few players. I'm not convinced. They can't back me in the well.
Yeah.
I'll jump ship. He has shown that. So, maybe if he doesn't get top 4 and then the remit next year is you got to get us top 4 or win the Europa League, you might think, I'm really not up for this.
Or I can go to PSG and play in the, not play, but, coach the Champions League and try and get this club a Champions League. Has he won a Champions League?
He hasn't.
No.
That'd be a good opportunity.
And you're not going to win one with Spurs, are you? Let's be real. So
I bloody hope not. They gave us a fright a couple of years ago.
They did indeed. Does that worry you then? Because the natural replacement would be Pochettino, who got them to that final. If he returns, I'm going to be honest, that worries me more, Poch going back to Spurs. People talk about him being a bottler and then being bottlers, but he got them to a Champions League final. And, he got them into the top 4 a couple of times at least. That worries me more than Conte being there, to be honest.
Yeah, but I mean, I think we've got to live with the reality and fact that they're not little old Tottenham anymore. Listen, they haven't won a trophy for 11, 12 years, and we've all enjoyed that very much. Actually, longer? I can't remember how long it's been. Anyway, longer. 14 maybe? Anyway, they haven't won a trophy for a long, long time. The most they've got to shout about the last kind of couple of years is finishing in the Champions League and the Champions League final. I think we've got to just accept that they're going to be going for maybe not that top caliber of managers. I say that they've got Conte now, but they are trying to, and they are semi-competing with the best. And we've got to just hope that we do our thing right and not worry about what they're doing, but we do our thing. I think this Conte Spurs thing could be so interesting because I'll never write him off either. They could make a couple really shrewd signings and by December maybe be challenging for the title. They could also have lost Conte, and it kind of falls apart. I really don't know. I really don't know with that team.
They're chaos. They're a chaos factor, is Spurs. They're unpredictable. You don't know what's going to happen with them, and that makes them annoyingly dangerous. We've got 12 minutes before we go into the Q&A section. We're going to use that 12 minutes to discuss everyone's favourite topic, which, of course, is transfers. But before we do, there's over 1,000 of you watching. If you could drop a like on the video, really would appreciate that. And we're only 17 subscribers away from hitting 31,000. So if you would like to join us, we do 8 a.m. shows, UK time, every single day. We're keeping you up to date with all the latest Arsenal news and reactions. We do interviews like this with fantastic guests like James, of course, who you can check out on AFTV, and plenty of other guests as well that I'm sure you will recognise, and some that you won't, and some that you should certainly be aware of who they are, because we get some fantastic people onto the show. But let's kick on with transfers, James, and let's start with everyone's favourite position as well as everyone's favourite topic, which is strikers. Just straight up, who do you want? Who's the striker that you would like to see lead the line for Arsenal next season, and why?
I would love Gabriel Jesus. I would.
Is your number one choice? That's
I don't
really
know.
interesting.
Yeah, see, is he my number one?
I feel like we need 2, so I'll let you go for 2.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's in my 2. So, yeah.
I know. I see the names. Darwin Núñez, Osimhen, I see them. Great talents. Lautaro Martinez. One of them could come in and be our Luis Suarez. That kind of, well, he's good, but how good is he? Oh, Sonny, you're challenging for the title. They could be that.
Mm.
They could also be your Soldado. Do you know what I mean?
Yes, I know exactly what you mean. Yeah.
And I'm not saying they are, because they're clearly very talented players, which is why I would err on the side of caution. And I think I would do Gabriel Jesus and, hear me out, Ivan Toney. I think in there you've got three very different options, with Martinelli as well being the third.
And Balogun as well, of course.
We've got Balogun to talk about, who I think is the most out and out number 9. Actually, Toney. Well, that we've got anyway now.
Yeah, of course.
I think Toney is a real handful. I think he is the kind of player that you might forgive him only getting 10 to 15 league goals a season, because what he's done to get you up the pitch and get you forward, and the link-up play is so good. Threat from set pieces. You've got to think as well, would Arsenal fashion more chances than Brentford over a season? You'd bloody hope so. Jesus I love, because I think he's worked with Arteta. He's shown he can score goals in the Premier League. He can play right, left, down the middle. He gives us that interchangeability. If you sign 2 strikers, they're both firing, you don't feel you need to drop one or the other. Aubameyang was a striker we had that could play wide, but he could play wide as a runner, not as a build-up, beating his man, link-up play. And Jesus does have that. In fact, Guardiola's used him down the right quite a few times, because his ability to make the run from out to in, and Kyle Walker finding him or De Bruyne finding him, is superb. Yeah. And Arteta's got a very good record of working with young wingers, from Saka to Sane to Sterling to Martinelli, Smith Rowe, and Jesus is one of them. So those are my 2. I'd go with Toney and Jesus. I know that is probably quite uninspiring for a lot.
I don't think it is.
But so are White and Ramsdale.
Well, this is what I was going to say, James, is that one of the big things that why I praise Arteta for the recruitment side, and it's not been perfect, don't get me wrong, we've made mistakes. January was a big mess up, massive mess up. And if we don't make top 4, that will be the key reason, in my view, why we don't make it. It's because of January. But the thing that Arteta has changed, as well as the rest of the recruitment team, is that we've started to do something that we hadn't done in 10 years, which maybe even more than that, which is to go to another Premier League club and go and say, we want that player. That guy that's starting for you every week and is smashing it for you every week, we want them. And we wanted Ben White, and we got him. And whilst Ramsdale, was at the Championship at the time, he'd been relegated from the Premier League twice. He was the player of the season for both Bournemouth and Sheffield United. And we went and got their best player. And it's ironic, because the thing that elevated Spurs from being a mid-table team to challenging with us for top 4 every year is because that's what they did. They went out and signed Moussa Dembele from Fulham and Clint Dempsey, and they brought in these Premier League players, the best players in other Premier League teams. They went and got Wanyama, exactly, another really good example. That's what they did. They went and got those players. Yes, they added some, duds, like, as you mentioned, Soldado, Lamela, etc. They're the ones, ironically, that they spent the most on. And then the cheap ones, I think Christian Eriksen was only something like 10 million quid they got from Ajax, something silly like that, similar to Coutinho, of course, coming from Inter Milan to Liverpool. It's always the small, cheap ones that surprise everybody. But yeah, that's what we've not done. We've not done that enough. We've gone and got Welbeck and Willian and Cedric and David Luiz, players that were surplus to requirements at other Premier League clubs. And that's why your suggestions of Jesus, who does start, I know it's difficult to say because he's not starting every week, but who does for Manchester City? There's not many of the players in that team, especially when you're competing with Mahrez and Grealish and Foden, Bernardo Silva. It's just so many players available to choose from. You're never going to start every week at City in that squad. But he does start, and he's got capabilities of scoring. I think he's been used in it's like signing 2 players when you sign Jesus, because he can play so well at right and through the middle, and to a lesser extent on the left as well. I like Toney from his footballing standpoint. What I would ask you about that is, does his attitude concern you? Because we've seen a couple of videos, the F Brentford, the no one special comments. Does that bother you? And do you think that Arteta may steer clear of him because of things like that? Or do you think that he would see it as something that he can change and turn around?
Yeah, that is a good point. There have been certain things that I've thought, if I were a Brentford fan, I wouldn't like that. I've never seen a performance that makes me think he's not committed to it, though.
Yeah, absolutely.
I've seen a few comments. A lot of people weren't happy with the Tony suggestion. I think the thing I'd say is, you know, Firmino's worn the number 9 shirt for Liverpool for 5 years, and he has contributed goals. And but what he's contributed away from that is far greater. And I just want people to look beyond the Tony's, finishing or his kind of how much of a goal threat he is.
Yeah,
I see someone who'd be brilliant defending set pieces, brilliant attacking set pieces, and would link up brilliantly with the young, creative midfielders we've got who have shown they can contribute goals, like Smith Rowe, Saka, Martinelli, Odegaard even contributed a few. That's why I like Tony. Yeah, the attitude thing's a good question. But it's never really been a problem for Brentford. I've kind of always thought, oh, that sounds bad. And then he's played and they've kind of gone with it. So, I guess that's the one thing I'd say. Look, in a dream world, I'd love us to go get João Felix. Perfect.
Really? That's interesting.
Potentially perfect for that. Look, I'll hold my hands up. I don't watch a lot of football outside England. I dabble into it and I keep up with it. I know more than the average person probably, but I couldn't tell you whether João Felix has been a real success or a real flop at Atletico. I think he's probably somewhere in between. He's probably been a good player for them, from what I understand. Yeah. But not what they thought they were getting with the money they spent.
No, it was never worth that. But neither was Griezmann moving to Barca for that much. Neither was Pepe. Like, players who move for those figures are never worth that amount of money. No. The only players that you would say is, the Neymars and Mbappes of this world. Like, they're the only ones that are.
Absolutely, yeah, spot on. I think he fits that false 9 role very well. Drops into midfield, links it nicely. I would like Arsenal to go and sign another forward. I don't mean just striker. Maybe why I like the idea of Jesus, but I'd really like us to go get like a Rafinha from Leeds, or like another wide player.
Cody Gakpo's the one for me in that kind of role.
Gakpo,
the wide player. Yeah.
Again, don't know too much about
15 assists is mad for a 22-year-old. I know he's playing at PSV in the Eredivisie, but still, for a wide player to score 17 odd goals and get 15 assists as well is mental. Yeah, absolutely mental. Yeah.
So I like that kind of player. I do think we need a little bit more out wide, potentially. I think Saka needs a bit of help. And I love Rafinha, right? What's that? Sorry.
Do you think Pepe will go?
Yeah, I think Pepe will go. And I think it's not a shame, but I do think he'll leave with us feeling like we never really played him in a system that helped him or suited him. Saka hugs the touchline. Pepe wants to get in the Salah position. He wants to be in a really tight front three, getting nearer to goal, going from left to right, down the middle, everything. I don't think we ever gave him that. But then at the same time, I don't think he's really made the most of his opportunities across the 3 years he's been here. While he's had some great moments, don't get me wrong. So I love a Jesus, I love a Tony, Premier League proven. I would see what we could do for a Rafinha, because he reminds me of Mahrez. Kind of player who, I think Saka's got this a little bit, but I think maybe because he's young, I don't know. The kind of player who, when it's pinged wide to him and he's one-on-one, he takes a brilliant first touch, he's one-on-one with the fullback, and you go, oh my God, we're finished here. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I know.
It doesn't matter who your fullback is. He's going to terrorise them.
Yeah.
And I think Rafinha's got a bit of that. So we'll see. But I think this is the summer that Arteta finally starts going. My foundations are there. Time to sprinkle some quality in that final third.
Yeah, absolutely. Just before I give you mine, chat box, if you would like to have a question thrown in, then please do use a capital Q. It helps them stand out a lot in the chat, and we'll go through in the next 30 minutes to round off the show. Yeah, I agree with Jesus. I really like him. I think he's a player that would add a lot of creativity and link up as well. I think people underestimate kind of how good he is because they look at his goal record as kind of the standout and think he's not scoring enough goals for a Manchester City team. But I actually think, given the confidence and the responsibility to be more of a starter in a team like Arsenal, I think he could flourish. So I think Jesus would be a really good option. The striker has remained for me Patrick Schick. I just the characteristics of him, quite similar to Tony, actually, aerially very good, not slow. He used to play on the wing, so he's got speed about his game as well. People think and look back to his time at Roma and RB Leipzig and like, are we sure? But I actually think he was a bit of He's like Olivier Giroud, but better in regards to him being kind of a late bloomer in his career.
Sure.
And I think that's certainly what's happening with Patrick Schick. Despite being rated very highly when he was very young, I think actually, he's coming good in the latter years of his... I say latter years, he's 26. It's not exactly like he's old.
Yeah.
He's got another 5 years, even maybe more at the top. So, and when you're only being beaten by Robert Lewandowski in your respective league, and when it's the Bundesliga as well, which is very, very good. Sure, Haaland's been injured, but, Schick's been very, very good.
Well, maybe we need a 26-year-old. Maybe we need...
This is what I think as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's why Jesus is certainly someone I like, because whilst I like us reducing the age profile of the squads, I think there's been points during the season where the kids have looked around for a leader and it's not been there. I think the Brighton game in particular was Xhaka at left back. There wasn't anyone senior centrally because it was Ødegaard and Lokonga and Smith Rowe and Martinelli. I don't think they had that senior figure to look to, and I think that's what you need. And if you have, say, a Schick, which I think Lacazette fulfills kind of that guidance role, but he's just not of the quality that we need now in that role. I think you need that experience. Yeah,
I think that's a great point, actually. Yeah. I mean, actually saying he's 26. In my head, he was 23, 24. Because
that's deceiving, isn't it?
Yeah. Great shout. Absolutely.
Central midfield?
Central midfield.
This is a horrible one because it's really difficult. And I think it's a testament to Granit Xhaka how hard it is to find an upgrade on him.
Yeah. I also think before you're picking your midfielder, you're really wrestling with what the profile is. Mm-hmm. So we were linked with Arteta. I know it's not worked out brilliantly for him at Juve. I was delighted with that because I think on that left side of the central midfield three, you want someone who can almost do a little bit what Ødegaard does, but is a little bit more robust. Yeah. And the player that comes to mind as a fit is Gundogan. He's got.
I said this the other day. Yeah.
He can drive. He can run with the ball. He's a good dribbler, superb passer, but he's no lightweight. He's tenacious. He's strong. Mm-hmm. So who is there? I mean, Nunes at Sporting Lisbon.
Yeah. See, you say Gundogan, I said Gini Wijnaldum. I know he's 31.
Yeah, great example.
I would go for someone like him because I think he would add the experience. I don't think there's a glut of brilliant midfielders out there, right now. I think there's lots of options for us to go for at striker, but I think central midfield, there just isn't that many options. So why not go for a Gini Wijnaldum? He's not playing week in, week out at PSG. Say, look, we're going, fingers crossed, if we get in the Champions League, look, we're going to play you every single week again in the Premier League. We're going to pay you more and come back to the Premier League and take as far as you can and we'll play you,
Do you like the Tielemans link?
I did. I go back and forth with this because he's been so bad. I'm trying to put my head around the idea of Tielemans because he's got a year left after this season. I just think he's just checked out, kind of. And I know that's not a good thing, but I'm trying to justify still liking him because there's clearly a really good player. But the fact that Dewsbury Hall's been better than him, for Leicester this season, I just don't know. Would you go for him?
I don't know why I'm judging a midfielder on pace, but I do feel, do worry. I don't think he's a lightweight either. I don't think you can run all over him. Very good on the ball, scores goals from distance. Look, if we made 3 signings this summer and they were Tielemans, Jesus, Tony, I know a lot of people would feel underwhelmed by that. I'd be okay with that. But I wouldn't be looking at them going, that's it. We've kicked on 3 levels. Brilliant. And that's what Van Dijk and Alisson did for Liverpool. They literally took them up 3-4 levels.
Absolutely.
So who's out there that does that? Maybe that's where the punt is on a Darwin Núñez and on the other Núñez. Is it Mateus Núñez from Sporting Lisbon? Yes. Maybe there's that superstar that's sort of smashing it out in Europe. Doug says Pogba. I tell you what, I would take Paul Pogba, and it's not going to happen. But I'd love Paul Pogba.
Why is it not going to happen?
I think despite everything at United, I still think he's going to get himself that Real Madrid or Barcelona or PSG. I still think that's going to happen.
If Zidane goes PSG and not Conte, he'll go PSG. I have no doubt about that. Yeah.
I think he'll still get that move. Someone's saying Bellingham would be amazing. would be amazing. How much would he cost?
I think he's got Liverpool written all over him, to be honest.
Yeah, he does, doesn't he? He really does. Yeah, interesting. I saw, it was the link I saw the other day. I saw Fabian Ruiz. I
Yeah,
like him.
I like him.
And then actually, I wouldn't. Neil D'Souza says Maddison. Now, I mean, if you got James Maddison, you're looking at Maddison, Partey, Odegaard. Just because it hasn't worked with Smith Rowe dropping in doesn't necessarily mean it wouldn't happen with Maddison. We've seen Guardiola play with De Bruyne, Rodri, Bernardo. So if the quality's there, the quality's there. It's a really difficult one. Jacob,
I like Tim. Jacob Ramsey's a great player.
What a shout!
Great player. He's not the player that he's not your Van Dijk or Alisson. He's who's a good example from Liverpool that you look at. He's a bit like I suppose Naby Keita's not really come good, but he had such potential when they signed him from Leipzig. You know, it's possibly kind of like that kind of one.
Is it a bit like Diogo Jota? I know a different position.
Yeah, it is. That's a really good shout.
You kind of thought, well, I know he's a good player, but really, they're spending 45 million, and then he ends up being
Sadio Mane. Like, is another one. You know,
who's that? Sorry, who's that?
Sadio Mane. They signed from Southampton.
Yeah.
You know, he's just it's absolutely.
Someone said Buendia. Big up Xander. Buendia. Quite a funny one. You know, this is the first window in a long time. I'm going into it almost not. Like without expectation or like an inner fan demand of what must happen. I know the positions. Go on, sorry, was that?
So you're excited for it instead of the expectation?
I'm kind of willing to sit back and just see what they do. I think that's trust that's been earned by the couple windows Arteta's had, where I think he's got most things right. I also think it's because a lot of it, I think, is interpretation and kind of what Arteta wants to do more so than what we think we need. Example, if we've signed Jesus and Rafinha, well, everyone's saying we need two strikers, but maybe Smith Rowe plays false nine, maybe Martinelli covers, maybe he doesn't play with an out-and-out number 9 like the previous Premier League winners. Maybe we think he needs another creative midfielder, and he goes and brings in a Ruben Neves and puts him next to Partey, and you think that feels a bit negative, but I'm ready to just sit and watch it happen. And I'm not I struggle to think there'll be a time in this summer where I start panicking about the window unless we've literally brought no one in. I think, oh my god! But then there's youngsters to come through. There are youngsters to come through. Charlie Patino a year on, Hutchinson a year on, Biereth a year on. So I think the squad's in a pretty decent place, foundations wise.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's what Eddie talked about in his interview, didn't he? He said they've addressed the balance, they've addressed the foundation, the overhaul, and now it's about going to that next step. And
who do you want?
I'm excited.
Sorry, so you said
Wijnaldum. Yeah, I'd go Wijnaldum, get in that 31-year-olds, because I don't think there's enough out there at the moment to really get that marquee world-class central midfielder. Like if City said, look, we're going to move him from Gundogan, I'd take Gundogan. And I think you get 2 more seasons at least at the top level from him. I mean, you see how long Fernandinho has been able to perform, into his mid-30s now. So, yeah, Gundogan or Wijnaldum, absolutely, I think would be absolutely quality additions to the squads, whilst there isn't a glut of central midfielders. We've got 22 minutes left, and we're going to go through your questions in the chat. Sorry if we missed them. There is a lot, as you would quite imagine. There's over 1,000, in fact, there's over 1,100 of you watching, and we've actually now just hit 31,000 subs as well. So thank you so much, guys, for the continued support, and drop a like on the video. You'll see James on the channel again I'm very, very sure. Luke, let's throw your question to James. Do you think that we should give Xhaka another contract in the summer after his comments, and has he turned things around?
I wouldn't give another contract.
No, neither would I.
He's just signed one.
Yeah.
But has he turned things around? Yes. I'm gonna say he has. Maybe an unpopular opinion. I'm so sorry, Granite. I love you. I love you now. Great goal. I think he's always been tremendously committed to the shirt. And I think his performances, actually generally under Mikel Arteta, have pretty much been 7s and 8s across the board. I think there are too many limitations to his game. And that's why the red cards and the needless bookings and the penalties he gives away. That's why they're more unforgivable than when legends like Patrick Vieira used to do it, because what you got from those players was like otherworldly.
Yeah.
I'm going to ask you. So I'm finding it really difficult to answer. Well, I saw my lighting out because I'm having a bit of a mare here. But has he turned it? Do you think he's turned it around? I mean, if he gets if he's part of with Partey's injury and the performance he's putting in, if he's continues to fall to this level and we get into the top four, that's a very lovely redemption arc, I think. What do you think?
I don't think he's turned anything around. I think he's just been this good. I think this is Granit Xhaka. I think this is what you see from him. There are going to be games where he makes mistakes. There are going to be games where he gets a red card, and that's Granit Xhaka. But they are, I think he has the most errors leading to goal in the Premier League, since he joined. Some stat like that. But when you break it down, I think it comes down to 1 or 2 errors a season, and he's playing every single game. And when he's not doing that, he's very, very good. But those negatives stand out, and they tarnish what he's good at, which is being consistent, being a leader, good passing into the channels, progressive play, shooting from distance if we need him to. He's direct with his passing, which I like, and I think that if you move him on and you upgrade on him, you've got to get it right, because if you get it wrong, we're screwed. And that's a huge compliment to Xhaka. But how many times have we played without him, and how many times have we turned around and been like, oh man, we miss him. Well, we really miss Xhaka in this game, and that shows you how good he is.
Well, my kind of biggest compliment to him, or bit of praise to him and Arteta, and I don't know whether it's Xhaka improving, whether it's Arteta's tactics, I don't know what it is, but I can't remember the last time we said, oh, Xhaka got overrun in midfield. Oh, he got absolutely, he couldn't keep up. The pace was beyond him. Now, as well as the errors and the cards and all that, the biggest thing was, no team plays with a static midfield anymore. The game's moved on, and he doesn't look off the pace at the moment. It hasn't really for a long time, and I think that's where I've seen the massive improvement. I still think the best of the best can look at their 11 on the pitch and believe that 7 or 8 of those players can win them the game. And I think at the moment we've got 3 or 4 can win us a game, like Odegaard, Saka, one of Martinelli or Smith Rowe whoever's on, maybe the striker. Liverpool can look at Keita, Thiago, Henderson can win you a game.
Yeah, absolutely.
Their fullbacks can win you a game. Bernardo, Gundogan, De Bruyne, Jack Grealish, Raheem Sterling, Gabriel Jesus. And I don't put Xhaka in that bracket of he can win you a game. He can be phenomenal and crucial in a match in which you play brilliantly and win. But there is a slight difference for me.
Yeah, I think he falls into the bracket of players that aren't good enough for City and Liverpool, as you say. But I'll tell you what, he's been better than Jorginho this season. I think.
Comfortably.
Yeah, so, and this is a Jorginho that was in the World 11, was on for the Ballon d'Or, not so long ago. So I think that kind of tells you the context of where Xhaka is. But yeah, he's not good enough to play for City and Liverpool, and we need a player that is. But the players that are good enough to play for City and Liverpool are at City and Liverpool. That's what makes it difficult to find them. I mean, the other one, I like Valverde at Real Madrid, but he's at Real Madrid. I'd like Goretzka at Bayern Munich, but he's at Bayern Munich, and this is the problem: is that the players that are going to be good enough, Jude Bellingham is the one at Dortmund I think you could get, but again, I think he's going to go to Liverpool, and that's the problem.
Yeah. Well, my hot take is that I think we'll bring in a central midfielder, and I bet you for the first 2 months, Xhaka still starts every game.
Yeah.
I think Arteta will bed this guy in, take time, cup games, appearances here and there. And I think Xhaka will still be a big part of our midfield.
I'll tell you what, we missed Bruno Guimaraes though. He is certainly a player that I think could have been the one.
I mean, you couldn't cherry pick a better example of what Arsenal fans mean when we say upgrade. Yeah. And some fans get very offended by it. What do you mean upgrade? Give him the credit he deserves. I've seen Bruno Guimaraes in a handful of appearances for Newcastle score certain goals, make certain runs, drives in midfield, passes with the outside of his foot, assists with the outside of his foot, and you just go, this guy's another level, and
so annoying.
And he would have been perfect for us. So that's exactly what I mean when I say a level above Xhaka. But that doesn't have to be a criticism. It doesn't have to be a criticism of Xhaka. I kind of wonder whether Houssem Aouar is completely off the table. Probably
I hope
is.
so, because I don't like him.
Fair enough. Fair enough. I've not seen him enough, but
yeah,
considering we wanted him so much before.
I know. I just don't think he's the
Bruno
one.
Guimaraes is a great example of what we mean.
Wow, we took quite a while to go through that. Sorry, that's not your fault, James. That's mine. And so,
no, my bad. I mean, it's such he's always a big discussion,
really good
Xhaka, isn't he?
Yeah. Aya, thank you for the super chat, mate. We'll try and do a lightning round of questions and go through as many as we can so we can tackle. Aya says, which signing would be more effective, Osimhen or Fabian Ruiz? So the striker or the central midfielder, basically, is what he's asking.
Osimhen for me.
I agree. Yeah. I mean, you look at the midfielders that we've already got and you look at the strikers that we need. I think that tells you the reason why. Let's go to Ronald, who says, Jesus or Tammy for Premier experience would take Jesus of the two. Then one from abroad like a Nunez or Schick. Unconventional options are Nkunku or Gakpo. Maybe three, as Pepe should probably go. So, I mean, from them, Jesus or Tammy, I think you said earlier that, you'd go for Jesus. But Schick or Nunez, one of the two from abroad?
Well, Nunez did cause Liverpool real problems, didn't he? That's quite exciting. Schick, probably the cheaper, more experienced option. Probably Nunez. I don't really know why. Probably Nunez.
Yeah. It's that unknown. It's the Vlahovic factor, I think.
Yeah.
There's a bit about Nunez. Yeah, the Vlahovic factor.
That's exactly it.
Ian says, how many players we need to buy in the summer, irrespective of where we finish? For me, it's 6. 2 in attack, 2 in midfield, and 2 fullbacks at least. Given Saliba comes back, would like to get a Verratti in. Wow, that's a big ask. But yeah, what would you think about how many do you think we need? Because Edu said we're going to go for 2 big signings, but that doesn't rule out, the other depth signings that we might need.
Yeah, in fact, the journo who interviewed him,
something. Yeah.
Yeah, he did tweet saying he didn't get the impression that he meant only 2, which is very encouraging.
Mm-hmm.
And it's nice to hear Edu sort of say quite bluntly, this is what we're looking at, which is great.
And they've planned it and it's ready to go. Yeah.
Yeah. I think we need 2 strikers or 2 players who can play number 9.
Mm-hmm.
I think we need another wide forward, a central midfielder. And if there's a little left in the bank, you go and get a fullback, wing back.
Mm-hmm.
My football manager choice, who I've definitely not seen enough of, but I have YouTube videos to tell me he's a good player and we should go.
He must
for
be
him.
world class.
Must be unbelievable, right?
Yeah.
It's actually at Man City. Pedro Porro, who's at Sporting.
Oh,
Lisbon.
yes. He's the only player I ever invested any shares in when they would, I can't remember what was it, Football Index before they did that chaos.
Yes.
He's the only player I ever invested in anything in. And then they crashed, so I never actually got anything from it. But yeah,
exactly.
He's a great player.
I mean, is it because he's Spanish, can play right back and left back, has been part of the City? I don't know. But I mean, he's been a pretty semi-exciting youngster for quite a few years now. And I think he's had a few loans, so becoming pretty experienced. I bet you the fullback we go for will be a Cancelo type, can play right back and left back. Mm-hmm. Very versatile, very creative fullback, very flary type. I think we'll get an exciting fullback. And my other hot take, I think our centre-back options next year will obviously be White Gabriel. I think Saliba will come back. I wouldn't be surprised if we see Tomiyasu playing at centre-back next year a little bit. I think as we get that added quality at fullback, which I think Arteta thinks we need, we'll see Tomiyasu playing at the heart of defence more often and covering there.
I agree. I think that you're right with the number of players. I think 5 is probably about right.
I'm expecting 4. I'd like 5.
Yeah, so am I. 2 forwards, wide forward, central midfielder and a fullback. That's, 5, I think. Because I think there's potential for youth to come through. The only issue with the right back situation is I really like Brooke Norton-Cuffy, who's coming through, and I think he's going to be a brilliant player. So I'm wary of that.
I always forget about him.
The way around it is, as you say, is you buy a fullback that can play both sides. The other one is Joachim Mahler, the Danish guy as well, who can play on both sides and did do that for Denmark in the Euros. So he's another one. But yeah, Pedro Porro, fantastic shout.
I wouldn't look past. So just very quickly, sorry, I wouldn't look past
Go on.
the likes of Cedric maybe getting a move because he's actually had a pretty decent season all in all. I could see him getting a decent move. I could see Nuno Tavares going out on loan. And then the options being Tommy Tierney, new signing, and then Norton Cuffy. That one surprised me. Saka can fill in at left back. So White can fill in a right back while the right back goes to left back. Saliba's there. I think we might see something like that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you're right. There was a question from... Oh, where's it gone? It was a quite really good one from Henrik. Basically, I'll find it, but it was basically asking, here we go, would you keep El Neni beyond this season? He's a good squad player and he doesn't cry about being that exact thing in the team. You know, he's a very, very good part of the squad. Just quickly, I don't think he will want to be that, though, anymore. I think he will want to end his career playing, personally.
For him, I want him to have the move and go be the player he can be somewhere else. I'd love to keep him, and maybe a little bit of revisionism and what is it? Recency bias, because of the last few performances.
Yeah,
maybe a loan for Lokonga and then El Neni having that role isn't such a bad thing. But I really like Lokonga. So if El Neni goes and Lokonga is the cover for Partey, with hopefully the added quality and experience next season, it shouldn't be too much of an issue.
Max Ashford's another good question. Who do you think will be harder away from home this season, Newcastle or West Ham? I'm going to just throw this in, and I think it's without doubt Newcastle. West Ham play Frankfurt 3 days or 4 days before, and Newcastle are very good at home now. And there's the narrative of, Bruno Guimaraes wanting to prove that Arsenal were wrong not to get him. So, yeah.
I think Newcastle, but because of the situation we might be in come that game, if that makes sense. Penultimate game.
That's why winning the next 3 is so big. It's because we might not have to worry about it, and that would be great. But
we say we want Arsenal to be competitive. I'm not sure we mean it. Lounging around in 8th, 9th, and 10th was far less stressful.
Oh,
maybe
yeah.
it was. Maybe I've got a repression and I forgot all about it.
Oh dear, he doesn't mean it, I promise. Madupe says, would you guys take another summer where we don't strengthen on Xhaka if it meant Bellingham was coming in the 23-24 season? Personally, I would. I think it's a good question, actually.
You're taking another summer?
So basically, you don't sign a midfielder this summer, you keep Xhaka, and instead you get Bellingham next year.
As I was reading that out loud to myself, I was kind of thinking, well, who are the options then?
Partey, Xhaka, Lokonga a year older, Patino coming through. I think you'd probably then you'd extend El Neni for another year.
Do you know, I don't think
Maitland-Niles you keep, maybe?
I don't think I would do that, actually. I think midfield's so crucial. And I don't think Bellingham's the only option. Well, I know we said we're short on options, but no, I don't think I would do that. I think it's really important we get a midfielder this summer.
Fair play. Stick to your guns. Chris says, do you think we have overachieved this season, considering we have players like Xhaka, Laka, El Neni and Cedric playing regularly? To be honest, not many of our players would get into many top 8 teams.
Arsenal Football Club, off the back of a £150 million spend, no, they haven't overachieved. But this current crop of players, with a manager in his first job, on the back of what's happened the last couple of years, have overachieved. Sometimes it's very hard to detach the team from the club.
Oh, absolutely.
And that's where it's so difficult. The club should always be held to a certain standard. If I'm trying to think of an analogy, but I'll talk some complete shite. But essentially, if you put me in a job and it's a very important job that I'm not qualified to do, but I do okay, I'm massively overachieving for me, but I might not be doing the job that needs to be done. I prefer
to for you then.
What's that? Sorry,
is that Arteta for you then?
Actually, I didn't even mean it like that. But do you know what? Yeah, I mean, I think it's more than I expected of this group and Arteta if they finish in the top 4, even 5. It's more than I expected of them. Yeah. But it's not more than I'd have been demanding of Arsenal Football Club 2.5 years on from the day Arteta was hired.
Arrived. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's what's hard.
That's
And
a really good way of putting it. Yeah.
yeah, and people talk about the process and all that. And for me, the process restarted in the summer. I think he came in, he gave Aubameyang a new deal, he signed Willian, he signed Partey. I think he wanted not quick fixes, but I think he wanted to feel he could get into that top 4 and then kick on. And then with Edu, Sanyehi leaving, everything that went on, I think they totally scrapped up the plans. And when we start again, which is why I think people don't want to like it, Arteta outers or whatever. I mean, ultimately they want the best for the club, won't like hearing it. But I really think if there is a process, it genuinely started back in the summer. I do. I think it restarted then, really.
I think you're spot on. I think I agree with it wholeheartedly. I think that his first year, and to be honest, I don't really count, what he did at the start when he came in and won the FA Cup. That was a great 6 months. But it wasn't, it didn't really tell us anything. 2021, that season was, we saw the good things with the Gabriel and the Partey signings, and we saw the bad things, with the Marie, Cedric and Willian signings, So I think that there is the good and the bad, and obviously the results, and then bringing the youth through like Smith Rowe and integrating him into the team and stuff like that. That was all good, and improving Saka, etc. But yeah, I think it was effective. I don't like calling it a free hit because it's a buzzword, but it basically was. That's what it was. And there shouldn't be free hits at Arsenal, but maybe it's what we needed, to work out what actually we do need to do, which I think we have done this season.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people think they want a rebuild till it happens, and
they realise how hard it is and how long it takes. Yeah.
A rebuild is literally, you use analogy of a building that needs rebuilding over it. You got to sometimes tear it down to start again, but a lot of people sometimes don't like the tearing down. And that is not me saying that Arteta and Arsenal have got it all right. We have still got a lot to learn about whether their decisions are the right or the wrong ones. But at least they've made decisions. At least they've made them. And I went for a few years, even watching Emery, even watching Wenger at times, and thinking they're not making the ruthless decisions this club needs to make. So whether we made the right ones or not, I do think we've made some big ones.
I think a good analogy, if we're using buildings to describe it, is it's a bit like your favourite pub having to be torn down. But in the last 10 years, it's been taken over by new owners. The people that are running the bar are not what you want. It's gone downhill, and gradually, there's not as many good people in it. In fact, it's getting very, very quiet. You aren't, necessarily winning any awards for it, and you need to tear it down. And the owners make the decision to tear it down and rebuild something in its place. It's not it's not what you thought it might be, and it's going to take a while to get there, but eventually you might like even more what comes next. So yeah,
that's the hope.
We're going through analogies today. We'll be able to get through a couple more before we wrap up. Himni says, why is Bukayo Saka not being considered for captain by the fan base? England international, star boy, hard-working, talented, and moves the needle. I love that phrase. That's great.
I love that phrase. Very simply, he's doing superbly. He doesn't need any more pressure he's already got. I want Rafinha so that Saka can enjoy his football more next year. That's why. It's not to replace him. Top teams have good options, and they cover each other, and they fill in for each other, and you replace one cog with another, and the whole thing keeps moving as it did. I would be bringing in serious competition for Saka, not giving him the armband, which I think is the complete opposite, and doubling down on how much he's your main man. Take the pressure off. He's already going to have a World Cup to worry about. And I just think the responsibility he's taken on, I think a little bit has to be on his own terms. Like the penalty he took at Stamford Bridge. He wanted to take that. And I love that. And if you didn't want to take it, that's fine. Do you know what I mean?
I know exactly what you mean, yeah. I think it's spot on about the idea that Saka could be captain shows how good he is and shows what he is to the team. But you're absolutely right. Don't apply that pressure. Just keep him as he is, and let someone like Ødegaard, who is naturally a captain and has been for Norway now, and has got that ability, let him do that. Let him take that burden because he's been doing it fantastically. So, yeah. Dom says, are you happier seeing retired club legends in the stands for big games or in the pundit's chair? I'm referencing Scholes and Thierry Henry and Bergkamp. It was interesting seeing Thierry Henry and Bergkamp there, especially Henry because of the whole Daniel Ek thing. You know, the fact he was there with the young players, the fact that the club let him, do that, because I kind of thought there was a bit of bad blood, especially after what, Thierry Henry's Xhaka comments, I don't imagine would have gone down too well when they leaked. Some of them comments leaked. I know they were done behind closed doors and they leaked, but still, it didn't come down well. Especially, like from what I'm aware, it didn't go down well in the club at all. So it's good seeing that he's back and that's been integrated.
The Henry thing's so fascinating. First and foremost, it goes without saying, the doors should always and will always be open to Thierry Henry at Arsenal because of who he is.
Oh yeah.
And we
Doesn't
know
go
that.
without saying, yeah.
Absolutely. Exactly goes without saying. But we are on YouTube and we do we work in the industry we work in. I also thought the same. The Xhaka comments, some of the comments about not finishing fourth would be a failure. The Daniel Ek stuff. I felt there was a sense that Henry was maybe, I would say, pushing back on what was going on at the club, but was pretty vocal in not liking some of the key components of kind of what we are. But I loved seeing him there. I loved seeing Bergkamp. There were more. Obviously, Edu was there because he works there, but he was there on the day. Jens
Lehmann and Gilberto Silva.
Thank you. Jens Lehmann, Gilberto Silva. Jan Giroud was there. He was at the Chelsea game as well. And all of that added to what I said at the beginning about the buzz with the fans, the young kids with the ball, the youngsters on the score sheet, the Emirates in full flow, leapfrogging Tottenham on a sunny day in April. It just felt Arsenal. It felt Arsenal. It felt classy. It felt like a family, community. And the legends being there, for me, was the icing of the cake. I really love them. I mean, everyone was in the building. Hey, love him or hate him, it's up to you. But Piers Morgan was in the building. Everyone was there.
I saw Judge's photo of Piers. Oh, yeah.
How long has it been since Arsenal got to a sunny day in April against Manchester United with something to genuinely chase? And I think everyone fueled that. And that was really, really special and nice to see.
Absolutely. The fans have been crazy this season in the ground. I've only been able to get to a couple of games. I went to the Aston Villa game that we won 3-1 and the Liverpool game. Unfortunately, we didn't win, but both atmospheres were crazy. Like so good.
Yeah. Away
sorry, go on.
Too. No, just away support.
Oh, yeah. I'm gutted I haven't been to an away game this season, mainly because it just hasn't been able to happen with work. But
no, of course,
it's going to the last away game I went to was the Palace game. Was it last season, I think? No, the season before last. When yes, it was the 2-2. That was the last away game I got to. Yeah. And that was, I don't get too many because it's really hard to get tickets for away games. But, it's the away fans are consistently just brilliant. And they are. I'd easily say they're the best away fans in the league. I don't think we necessarily have the best home ground atmosphere in the league, but away from home, we have the best without a shadow of a doubt. Shadow of a doubt. I think Palace probably have the best home atmosphere, to be fair, of the entire
They're relishing league. Tottenham. Some of the people I speak to, listen, I'm one of those. I'm worried about that game. And I speak to some of the regular away fans and they say, I can't wait for Tottenham. Rock up to their place. Yeah. Is it the first time Arsenal fans are going to that ground? I believe it is.
Yes, it will be. I think maybe there was a small section last year because it was towards the end of the season, wasn't it? But I don't think, maybe there wasn't away fans.
I think it was a Arsenal women's game that they got to.
You might be right. Yeah,
I think so. So that, but they're relishing it. That tells you everything you need to know about the away fans.
Absolutely. We're going to wrap up. Reefa, just want to shout out your comment. Big up you two. We'll go back and watch from the start. Just wanted to stay hello. Thank you, Reefa, for tuning in. Really appreciate your kind words. Show some love in the chat box for James. He's been absolutely brilliant. You're already getting plenty of really nice comments in here as well, mate. So you've been absolutely brilliant.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me on. And
it's always a pleasure,
work
man.
On your channel and everything. It's always
thanks, man.
What you do.
Appreciate it. Listeners, you'll see James, I'm sure, back on the show very, very soon. I don't know why we left it so long. I think the last time you came on was December. So we need to make sure we shorten that gap next time, because it's been absolutely fantastic speaking to you again. Thank you, James. Tell people where they can find you and what you're going to be up to.
Oh, I go on AFTV. I'm there waffling about Arsenal and stuff. Our pride and joy is Graham and I's tactical insight. So we'll be doing that tomorrow to discuss, not just the United win, but a bit about Chelsea. We didn't get to do it last week. I stayed actually. Graham can't be there. I know he'll be gutted he can't be there, but I will be going over that. Come and join. And otherwise, I'm just on socials. It's James AFTV. Pretty simple stuff. But listen, thank you so much for having me on. Really appreciate it.
No, my absolute pleasure. It was a really good chat for an hour and a half. And as I said, we won't make the gap anywhere near as long as it was this time around. Chatbox, thank you. You've been absolutely brilliant. Sorry you weren't able to go through all of your questions. There was a lot of you in here. In fact, there's over 1,000 of you still listening, so thank you so much. And thank you for helping us reach 31,000 during the show, which is a nice thing to see clock over to. We'll be back tomorrow morning for the 8 a.m. show as per, catching up on all that Edu goodness and more transfer links as well to discuss. And of course, a little bit more fallout from that interesting Antonio Conte news, which is a little bit amusing, and we much enjoy things that are very amusing about Tottenham Hotspur. See you soon. Have a fantastic evening and week as we start another one. And drop a like on the video, subscribe if you're new, and as always, up the Arsenal.